And I am super excited and very humble that um, to be invited to share some nuggets and some information regarding the interview process. So I see we have another person who joined us. I didn't see the name, but welcome. And I hope that you guys find this time very valuable and able to grab some helpful information. So a little bit about me. I am a certified HR professional with 20 years of progressive leadership experience across diverse industries. I have a passion for fostering positive workplace environments, cultures, and I'm committed to employee development. These types of settings and learnings I thrive in because anything that I can do to help others reach their goals and become the best version of themselves, I am all over it. So I was just super excited. I couldn't even sleep last night because I was so excited about today's webinar. I do have an MBA from Wayne State University, and I earned my bachelor's of science degree in human resources management with a minor in psychology from Oakland University. I currently work as an HR generalist with the Accounting Aid Society, and I don't know, just a shameless plug. The Accounting Aid Society, if you have not heard about us, what we do is we provide tax services and tax assistance to individuals and small business owners, low to moderate income clients in the community with their tax preparation assistance. And we've been around for over 50 years. I am a Detroit native, born and raised. I am a hometown sports fan. Go Lions. I am so excited for the Lions. I'm an avid gardener and I enjoy gardening. So that's a little bit about me. And so what I like to do is I have a short video. I'm a very visual person, and I just want to kind of keep it light because interviewing can be a heavy topic. So I want to kind of lighten the mood a little bit and show this quick video. So let me know if you guys can hear it okay. You probably already seen this video.
What makes you think you're qualified for this job?
So I know that's probably a little extreme. I don't know if you guys remember seeing that video. It was a Pepsi video, Pepsi Max video, I think, that they were promoting at the time. And I remember seeing that commercial and it just left such an impression on me because it was just like, wow. It was unbelievable. But at the end of the day, the strategy worked, right? So I'm not advocating to do that. But as you can see, there's many ways on how you can master that interview, and he landed the job. But just wanted to kind of lighten the mood today. So a couple of things that we're going to cover today. I kind of divided it across three areas, or three categories. So we're going to talk about what to do before the interview. What goes on and what happens during the interview, and what happens after the interview. And I do want to mention, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I know that Cheryl will be monitoring the chat, so if you have questions, feel free. Um, we're a small group here, so if there's any pressing questions, and if you want to talk through, we will. I do have quite a bit of slides to go through. I kind of want to go through them, and then we can allow some time towards the end to answer the questions. But I understand, if there's a thought right then and there you don't want to forget, if we want to talk about it, we can. Okay. All right. So before the interview, preparation is definitely key, pre-interview. And I know sometimes you may not have a lot of time to prepare, but there's always time to prepare. Even if you do not have an interview schedule, you should be preparing for an interview. And so I was thinking of just some areas, some buckets on how you can prepare. And this is something that could be ongoing. So from a research standpoint, as far as researching the companies, if you have companies that you're interested in working with, target companies, start researching now. Even if you don't have an interview with them, start researching them. Start looking at their About Us on their company website, understanding their culture and values, the mission of the company, the goals of the company. Any types of news articles or anything that's going on with the company, as far as any new products or new services or what have you. Continue to keep your ear to the ground, as I say. You can go on LinkedIn, follow the company on LinkedIn. The companies that you're targeting, that you're interested in working with. You can look them up on Google. Talk with your network. If you know any friends or have any family members who might have a connection with that particular organization or company, feel free reaching out to them. Reach out to your LinkedIn contacts and say, hey, do you have 5 minutes? I have an interest in this company, and I see that you work at the company. Would love to connect with you and gain some additional insight. So start doing that now. You don't have to wait until you get the interview. You can start doing that right now. And digital footprint. So, with the pandemic, with COVID, it really kind of shifted. It shifted how the interview process or the formats of the interviews, it just all changed. It just shifted everything. And so our digital footprint is, I would say, compared to 10, 20 years ago, was like non-existent. But now it's expected that you have a digital footprint, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, IG. So managing your online reputation is going to be very key. And I would ask, had you Googled yourself? Do you know what comes up when you Google yourself? Because you might be surprised. Employers, they may go beyond going to LinkedIn. They may go to Facebook or try to look at Twitter, or go to any other social media platforms to try to find out more about who you are as a person. And you want to make sure that your online persona matches your offline persona. And so that's something that you can start now. You don't have to wait until you have a scheduled interview. Remote interviewing. So a lot of companies are still, they actually, since the pandemic, and the pandemic really pushed this shift, because I think prior to the pandemic, companies were gradually going in the direction of remote interviews or virtual interviews. And the pandemic, it just basically just, just that's the way we're going. Just really kind of shifted the format of that. And even post pandemic, a lot of companies are still utilizing remote interviewing as their initial interview format. And so it's really important to make sure that you test your setup. If you have an interview schedule, test your connection. Make sure that your connection is working properly. Make sure that the platform, the app of the virtual interview that is working properly and that is compatible with your laptop, with your tablet, with your setup. You want to try to join the meeting early, just to check your headset, making sure the sound is okay, making sure microphone is okay, your camera is okay. You can do a dry run. I highly recommend that you do a dry run with maybe a friend or a family member, and do it prior to the interview, and have them to give you some feedback on maybe the lighting, the sound, if there was any background information, how you were coming across. There could be some nonverbal cues that we're not aware of, and they can provide that. And then also they can tell you whether or not your camera is in the right angle. Are you looking at the camera or are you looking at the screen? Because it can be a little tricky, it can be a little awkward. So I strongly suggest to test drive that first. Your key qualifications and skills. You don't have to, again, wait until you land the interview. You can start jotting down your success stories right now, particularly the ones that you are most proud of. So start thinking about those accomplishments that you have gained at work, or even in your classes, your undergraduate program, your graduate program, or volunteer work. Think of those success stories right now and write down like 3 to 5 accomplishments, and you'd be surprised. Many of the questions that that will be asked or might be asked, those accomplishments may already address many of those questions. So I recommend to start doing that now. And last but not least, practice, practice, practice. My philosophy is, you hear the saying, practice makes permanent. I don't believe that. Oh, practice makes perfect. Practice, I'm sorry, let me take that. Practice makes perfect. I don't believe that. Practice makes permanent. That's my philosophy. So you want to practice in the mirror. Record yourself on your phone, on your tablet, on your laptop. Review the recording and see, it will show you some of those nonverbal cues. It will pick up some of the ums. You know, I say a lot of ums too. And so you'll be able to properly self-assess yourself and to make those corrections. You can have a family or friend to interview you and give you some constructed feedback. And at Walsh College, Cheryl, I don't know if Walsh College offers mock interviews
We
with
do.
the career services,
Absolutely.
but that's also an option too.
Yeah, we do.
Awesome. All right. Any questions before I move on? All right.
I just want to mention the importance of like you said, out loud. You know, hearing yourself out loud makes all the difference when you practice out loud, just like public speaking. So you know how your deflection in your voice, and just, are you coming off confident, you know, enthusiastic about the job, all that you're going to hear by recording it or saying it out loud in the mirror. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to add too, because virtual interviews right now have become the norm. as an initial step, it's it's slightly different. You still have to build that connection, whether you're in person or not. But when you are in a virtual atmosphere, you have to really be intentional. You have to be intentional about your voice inflection. You have to be intentional about your resting face when the question is being asked and you're thinking of, how do I respond to this? So make sure that you're smiling. Make sure that you're still giving eye contact. Make sure that your posture is straight. This the same body language, the same facial, language, uh, facial expressions that we or that you have been taught or heard about in in-person interviews, it works the same as in virtual. But from a virtual standpoint, you have to be very, very mindful, and that's why it's so important to record yourself, to see yourself, because we can't see ourselves, right, when we talk. So you'd be amazed of what you pick up when you do record yourself. Great, that's a great point. All right, so during the interview, so just real quickly, here are some common interview formats that are used. Now, how I have this organized, it's not in chronological order. It could be, but it could be in any order. But one thing's for sure, I will say as a standard, before an in-person interview or a group interview happens, there's normally, I would say probably over 80% of the time, there's going to, or probably 90%, there's going to be a phone screen. There's a phone screen step in the process. That's the initial step in the process. That's typically conducted by phone. And it's also conducted virtually too. I'm seeing more of that. But typically it's conducted by phone, it's conducted by the recruiter. And that's an opportunity for the recruiter to ask you some preliminary questions, not going into a lot of detail, but is to help to narrow down the candidate pool. And it's, I hate to say, but is the reality, to see, they're looking to see why I should not move this person forward. So it's really to narrow it down. And I spent about 8 years of my career directly leading talent acquisition initiatives. And so I understand what the purpose is. And with the phone screen, first I want to say, when you get to the phone screen, congratulations. Give yourself a pat on the back, okay? Because that is a major accomplishment, especially in the world of ATS systems and AI. Okay, so if you are invited to a phone screen preliminary interview or a first step interview, let me tell you, that is a great accomplishment. Great accomplishment. The virtual interview, again, it could be the phone screen interview, or the first step interview could be virtual. It is using virtual technology. It could be the first round of interviews, or it could be used as the second round. The virtual technology could be used at any stage in the process. The in-person interview, normally that is held on site at the company site or the employer site. And post-COVID, during COVID, we saw a major drop, of course, in-person interviews and a rise in the virtual interviews. But post-COVID, we are increasingly seeing more in-person interviews as companies are requiring their employees to come back to work. And I think I personally think it's very advantageous to come on site, because as a candidate, that gives you an opportunity to read the culture, to assess the culture, to assess interactions between the employees. And so that gives you a different purview or perspective from a cultural standpoint, and to see, can I see myself working here? And then lastly, the group panel interviews. Normally, the group panel interviews, you're meeting with multiple interviewers at the same time. It could feel like an act of Congress. Could be anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. I remember being in a panel interview and there were 7 people in the interview process. Is very intimidating. What I would say as a tip, as you are responding to the questions, not only do you want to give eye contact to that particular interviewer who's asking questions, because everybody on the panel may not be asking questions. You may have one person or 2 people asking questions, other people are note takers, but you want to make sure that when you respond to the questions, that you are giving eye contact to each person on the panel. You want to make sure that they feel included. It's all about connection. And so you want to make sure that you are giving equal distribution of contact to every person. Okay? All right. Okay, so just a few more housekeeping things on the day of the interview. You want to arrive between 5 to 10 minutes early. If you want to wait in the parking lot, if you get there 30 minutes, that's fine, but wait in your car. Walk in like 5 to 10 minutes early. If there is a receptionist at the desk, greet them. Make sure you smile, you be pleasant. Everybody is interviewing you. Everybody. And you are interviewing everybody. It's a two-way street. So make sure that you're polite, you're greeting everyone. You are also assessing how everyone is interacting with each other, because that will tell you a lot too. You want to be prepared. Bring copies of your updated resume. Bring a notepad, bring a working pen. Take short notes during the interview. Now you're going to come with your questions that you're going to ask them. That's towards the end. But you may discover some additional questions during the interview. So just jot some notes down while they're talking. Just a quick, something quick that will help you to remember. Be positive. Nothing beats positivity. And you want to be approachable. Be mindful of your nonverbal cues. Be mindful of your resting face. You want to smile. You want to give eye contact. You don't want to stare at them because that can be a little creepy. But make sure that you're blinking as well too, but not a lot of blinks, because that could be a sign of nervousness. But you want to make sure that it's natural. And then also your cell phone. You want to make sure that it's silent. You want to silence your cell phone. Leave your cell phone in the car. If you won't have to worry about any distractions. Okay. All right. Any questions around that? Any additional thoughts? All right. So dressing for the job interview, I'm just going to quickly go through this. I would say that in the 20 years of my career, the dressing for the interview has definitely evolved. It has. When I first started off, you had to be, I use the phrase suited and booted, where you are dressing to impress. you're dressing for that next opportunity. That's how I've been trained. But it has evolved over the years, and I really do. I attribute that to the pandemic. The pandemic really played a pivotal role in that, where we went from business casual to casual or cash, as some people call it. But as some tips, uh, I would say wearing a suit, you cannot go wrong with wearing a suit. Wearing a nice blazer, wearing khakis, wearing slacks, you cannot go wrong. You want to be comfortable, because if you're comfortable and you feel good about what you're wearing and you're looking good, it's going to come across in your confidence. It really is. And so that's my advice, and how I would describe, how to dress for your interview. It also depends on the industry. There's some different industries that have different industry standards on what's acceptable in dressing. Some industry standards are a little bit less formal than others. Like the tech industry is more casual. You can wear jeans and probably t-shirt, what have you. So it might be a little bit more casual, versus a financial industry is a little bit more formal, where you do have to wear a suit or you have to wear a blazer, and slats and a skirt, or what have you. So I would advise that when you are invited for an interview, it's okay to ask the recruiter or the person who is scheduling your interview, hey, can you tell me what is the dress attire like there? What's the dress attire like? And it's okay to ask. They may even initiate that conversation for you without you even asking. They may say, we are a business casual environment, or we are a casual environment. They may tell you that. So just make sure, you don't want to, stick out, especially if it's like a manufacturing environment. I have a background in manufacturing. I worked in manufacturing environments, so it's very casual. And if you come in with the suit, they probably think that, oh my God, who is this person? Are they an inspector? Are they an auditor? So yeah, so you don't want to stick out like a sore thumb, but you don't want to be, too casual, where they're thinking, oh, this person didn't have any or take any thought into what they were going to wear today. So, but you want to make sure that you minimize accessories. Also be mindful of perfume and cologne. You want to be mindful of the smell, because some people might have some allergies, and you don't want that to be a distraction. And also from a neutral, from color standpoint, it's always safe to stay, neutral. And then also, closed toe shoes. So I have some images here, and on your left side, these are images of what's I would determine as appropriate. And on your right side are images that would be inappropriate. All right. Any questions, thoughts around dressing for success? And also, I want to mention this too. Don't wait until the night prior. If you have a couple of days, and I understand sometimes interviews are scheduled last minute. I get it. But again, it goes back to preparation. Preparation is key. So right now, in your job search, start identifying your attire. Make sure that your attire is clean. If you need it dry clean, take it to the cleaners, now, and make sure that you have the attire that's designated for your interviews. And make sure it fits. Again, it goes back to how you feel, and how you feel is going to come across in your level of confidence. Okay, we're going to get down to the nitty gritty. So we're going to cover some top question. I'm looking at the time. Okay, we're looking pretty good. So we're going to cover some common interview questions. And there are hundreds of questions to cover. But I identified a few that I'm going to cover for purposes of our time and the lunch and learn that that could trip you up a little bit. That could be a little tricky. Even as an HR professional, they still trip me up. I'm going to be very transparent. I am not an expert and I do not claim to be an expert. But this is something that I work on constantly. It's a work in progress as well. So don't feel bad. So the first one I want to cover is the tell me about yourself. I think is it Mahia?
Yeah, it's
Am I
Mahia.
pronouncing your name correctly? Okay.
Yes.
I know you have an interview next week and you mentioned the tell me about yourself and you were hoping that this was going to be covered. So tell me about yourself. Now, when you guys think of tell me about yourself, and feel free to get off mute. This is the part where everyone can participate. When you think about tell me about yourself, what comes to mind?
Probably like education is one of like the more common answers that people tend to answer with.
Yeah,
Background
yeah,
of education.
yeah, 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 definitely. Tell me about yourself. It sounds very simple, right? Very innocent. And but it is arguably the hardest question. It really is, because there's so many different ways on how you can answer this question. And when you think about the times that you have responded to this question, how long would you say that it has taken you?
I guess if no one else is gonna answer, the gal I did a mock interview with today, and that was what she was struggling with. Tell me about yourself. And I said, well, why don't you, kind of recite what you put together so far? And it was so long. She
Yeah,
lost me. And I said, do we need to shorten that up and, make it more concise? And
yeah,
so you keep that interviewer's attention, right?
yeah.
They can go
Yeah.
on with more probing questions after that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I know I can be long-winded. That's an area that I work on. And that's an area that I practice. Is constantly evolving. I've seen and I've heard responses anywhere from 2 minutes all the way to 20 minutes. And you have an hour, normally an hour interview. For that initial phone screen interview, it's normally 20 minutes and they allow maybe 5 minutes for you to ask questions. So you have to be very mindful of that time. And I'm also going to give you guys a perspective from a recruiter standpoint and an HR hiring manager standpoint too. The hiring manager is what they're looking for. They're looking for something. They want to know who you are. They want to know like your highlight reel. That's what they want to know. Something really quick as far as an accomplishment that is related to your role. And why do you want this opportunity? That's what they want to hear. They do not want to hear about, you have so many, how many kids you have, then, where you from, the personal, try to avoid that. Keep it professional. And they're oftentimes this is just kind of like a check. They're checking a box, really. And it's a icebreaker question. It really is. But it really sets the tone for the interview. It sets the tone for the interview and it forms an impression immediately. Like the first, I would say 90 seconds of your interview, an impression is being formed. So this is where you have to come in out the gate, wowing them. And if you do not have an elevator pitch, start developing one. Cheryl, I'm sure she is the elevator pitch queen and she can help you with that. The career services, utilize your resources at Walsh
Yeah.
to help you with that. And go online. Again, record yourself, practice until it becomes natural, and it's a natural flow. You want it to be natural, and you want to control the narrative. All right, so here's an example that I put here that you can, just as far as how it sounds and what it would sound like. So who are you? I'm Latrice Haywood. I'm, looking at the role after reviewing the job description and our discussion during the interview. It looks like the top priorities are onboarding new clients, creating ways to report on progress, and upselling clients. I built out an onboarding process at my last company for a new client. We were able to ramp up the time from X to Z. Then ask the interviewer, does that align with what you're seeing? Are these the type of priorities you see for this role? So again, something real quick, something to highlight, and then move forward to the next. The next question: what are your strengths? Going too fast. So what are your strengths? This is another common question too. And what the employer or the hiring manager is looking for. They're looking for you to name a key strength that matches a competency for the role. Okay. And they're also looking for you to give an example of a time when you demonstrated that strength. And this is an example that I add here at the bottom. I am very collaborative. I've always enjoyed working on teams, and it is one of my strongest attributes. In my previous job as a marketing research analyst, I led a project that involved diverse stakeholders, focus groups, and extensive field research, which taught me about my ability to inspire others in stressful situations. The client used our insights to create a sustainable, both environmentally and financially product. What do you think? I mean, the hiring manager would be blown away. Like, wow, kind of touched on several different things there and probably answered 2 or 3 questions that they have. So on the flip side, what are your weaknesses? And this is a tricky one. It really is, because the interview is your time to shine, but not shine too much where you don't seem as humble. So how do you strike that balance? That's where it becomes tricky. And so from a hiring manager standpoint, or the company, they're looking for you to name something that you're not that great at. So name something that you're not that great at, that is something that will be tied to the job, and explain how you're working on that. Explain the results of how you're working to improve that. So one thing that I've heard responses, oh, I don't have any weaknesses. Oh no, I do everything right. What do you think the hiring manager is going to think? It's not going to be believable. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not going to be believable. It's not going to be authentic. No one is perfect. We all have flaws. I use the phrase perfectly flawed. And we all have weaknesses. We all have room for improvement. And what the hiring manager or the interviewer want to hear is that you are self-aware, that you are reflective on those areas where you are where you might need some development, and here are some ways that I am improving in those areas. Excuse me. So an example that I listed at the bottom, my greatest weakness is that I sometimes focus too much on the details. I even use, I've used this response. So, excuse me. Oh, I got a tickle in my throat. Sorry about that. Apologize. Sometimes I focus too much on the details of a project and spend too much time analyzing the finer points. I've been striving to improve in this area by checking in with myself at regular intervals and giving myself a chance to refocus on the bigger picture. That way, I can still ensure the quality, still ensure quality without getting so caught up in the details that it affects my productivity or the team's ability to meet its deadline. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So next question. This is an interesting question. It's a tricky one because it asks about, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Now, I don't know about you. That could be pretty challenging because you may not see yourself next year, or you don't know what you're going to be doing next year or next week, let alone 5 years. So my advice is to focus your answer on only professional goals, nothing personal. So if you answer the question as, well, in 5 years, I have a desire to open up a coffee shop, or I have a desire to own my own business, don't say that. Because you know what that's going to tell. I mean, that's a great goal and all, but the employer, what they're looking for, they want to see how this role fits within your career path. The employer, they are going to be investing in you. They do not want to risk seeing that they hire a person and then they're gone. They're not going to get a return on their investment. They're looking for candidates to stay for the long term. That's what employers are looking for. So I would not advise that you mention anything of that nature, because it will tell them, oh, you're looking to work with us for the time being until you can get out on your own. That's the story. That's what they're going to be hearing, and that's what they're going to be interpreting from your answer. So focus your answer on the skills and experiences that you build. Don't focus on job titles. And think about what this role will contribute towards your career and what you're hoping to gain. So for instance, an account manager role. I see this account manager role being a step up in my career, as I have been a sales rep, but I really want to grow my expertise in managing others. Over the next 5 years, I want to build my leadership skills so that I can be someone who has a team that's highly retained and highly performing. Didn't mention anything about titles specific to your skills and what you're hoping to gain. Make sense? Any questions around that? I know that can be a tricky one. Next question, why should I hire you?
Can I share a story about that last question too?
Yes, absolutely. Please do.
So I just got done with the master's program, and we were doing a project where we were working with one of our clients, and we were to reach out to organizations around Macomb and Oakland County, and in order to kind of do a joint venture between Walsh and this organization, we were trying to find out, what organizations would be willing to offer, tuition reimbursement. They thought it was going to be, great results, but what we found out was that essentially companies don't want their employees to level up. I mean, it's just kind of the way it is. They just kind of want to keep their employees to where they are. And so what that kind of reflected on me is that, you want to go into what you're going into next as if that's what you're going to mature your way into, and you're going to provide the maximum amount of growth. So any kind of terminology of getting out the door of that job that you're trying to get into, like, I want to get into another degree with you guys or do something in a different direction. I think that's kind of a turn off to the personality that you're talking to. So that's just what I've done.
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing. It's interesting that you share that piece of feedback and information. I don't know if that is specific to a particular industry. I know that things have shifted, a bit when it comes to what the employee life cycle, what that looks like. I know, the pandemic definitely promoted that evolvement and that shift. And it could be, because of the job market, maybe. It's interesting that you hear, cultures, and that's a culture, that's a work culture. And that's why it's so important to understand as you are interviewing and you are getting information regarding the work culture. And I think that would be a great question to ask, as far as how the company, how do they view development and promoting? Because if that is your value, that as far as development and gaining new skills and being promoted, if that's what you valued, and if that organization or that company doesn't align with that, that might not be the right direction for you. And so that's great insight to have. And if you know that information beforehand, then that will definitely help to direct, your job search too. Sometimes some people would not become aware of that until after they have started in the role, and it's 3-6 months down the road. But that's interesting. My thought on that, as far as development, goes, and promotion, you own your development. And development can come in different shapes and forms. But I look at my development as, I don't look to my manager for my development. I take ownership of that. And if I need to go outside of the organization to do that, I know a lot of people, that can be a way for them, to do that, and a reason, for them to move to another organization, if that is their core value. And if they have reached a certain plateau and they need extra skills and they're not getting it there, that's a reason that I'm finding, or hearing a lot of, lately. So thank you for sharing. I do appreciate that. Yeah, that's the reality. Okay. So I think I went back too far here. And look at time. Uh-oh. I am. Okay, so why should I hire you? Have you guys been asked this question? Yeah. So why should I hire you? It may feel like a challenge, and it can really throw you off. And from a hiring manager perspective, what they're trying to get after is, the hiring manager is taking a full page of notes, and they just need the candidate to summarize for them. Help me help you. So just summarize for me and tell me why I should root for you, why I should hire you, just to make it easier for the hiring manager. So that's where the hiring manager is coming from. Is not to challenge you, is not to make you uncomfortable, but is really trying to help them sort out and help them with their decision making. So I would suggest having a more consultative, approach. Review the role again. Say, looking at the role in the job description during the interview conversation looks like, the top priorities are onboarding new clients, creating ways to report on progress, upselling. At my last company, I built out the onboarding for new clients where we had a ramp up time to go from X to Z, what have you. So review the role, talk about when in your past you have done those things, and then I will even follow up and ask the interviewer, the hiring manager, does this align, with what you're seeing? Are these the type of priorities that you're seeing for this role? Did I miss anything? And so that way is conversational, and you're getting some feedback at that time. All right. And then what are your pay expectations? This is another tricky one. This is where it can become a little uncomfortable. Often this question happens very early in the process, normally at the first step in the process as a screening, and as a way to screen and narrow down candidates. My suggestion from a negotiation standpoint, you never want to give the number first. When you do, you weaken your power. So given a number, I want you to think about this. When you give a number of how much your value is worth, before they gotten to know you, they don't know how to value that. So you are in control of that, and do not give away your power. So here are some examples of how you can respond to those questions. It could be something as very high level as I'm open to the best overall package that is aligned to the market. If the recruiter or interviewer, if they are pressuring you or pushing you to give a number, you can say something like this: I don't have an exact number at the moment, but I can tell you if I'm comfortable with your range, if you can disclose the range for this position. Or you can approach it this way: from my research, I found that roles with similar job responsibilities and experience levels typically offer compensation in the range of, and you can say the range, I would give like a broad, wide range. I'm aiming for a salary that reflects the value I can bring to this role. Does that match with what you are all seeing in the market? So turn the table on them. Oftentimes you will find they will tell you, yes, it definitely meets this range. They'll give you the range, or they may even give you a number. And then the last question is, why did you leave your last job? Or why are you leaving? First and foremost, you want to stay positive. You want to keep it short. I use the KISS example. Keep it short and simple. Don't give details. Especially if the reason why you left your job was, not a good situation. You want to frame your answer on what you want next versus focusing on what is wrong. So, for example, I love my role in coworkers, but I've come to a point where there are no longer growth opportunities on my team. Can you tell me a bit about the growth opportunities for this job and what the company does to develop employee careers? Could be an example. And if you were let go, here's an example of what the message or how to frame the message. In retrospect, I understand my former employer and I had a different expectation about what success meant in my role. As I reflect on that experience, I realized there are some things I could have done differently. I learned a lot, and I'm excited about the opportunity to bring that maturity to my next job. This role is in line with my skills and abilities and the direction I like my career to take.
What about if you were laid off? No fault to yourself.
Yeah, so we understand, especially during the pandemic, you're not going to get any pushback around that. So, being laid off, you can, in retrospect, you can share with them that how much you enjoying your opportunity, with your last company, your previous employer. Fortunately, your position was eliminated due to a layoff or what have you, or the company restructured the business where there was, if this amount, there could have been a 15% reduction in force. If that, say it, because that's something that was out of your control. And employers and hiring managers know that. They know that, there's business decisions that may require that. And it has nothing to do with your performance. It's just strictly business. And I would state that, especially if there was a number of people that were laid off, I would definitely mention that.
Yeah, Latrice, I just, for the sake of time.
Yeah, I'm looking at the time.
Do you want to finish? And if anybody wants to continue, we can go ahead and continue. But if you do need to log off for some reason, we completely understand.
Yeah.
We will have, can I get a copy of the PowerPoint to send out to everybody that attended?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
We did record it as well, but if you want to continue, I don't know how much longer it's going to take, but we can go ahead and do that. But I just want to be respectful of everybody's time. And if you do need to log off, we completely understand.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to mention this one last point, and it's regarding the STAR method. Have you guys heard of the STAR method? Okay, I see Cheryl's head shaking.
Yeah.
I know you have. But basically, real quickly, the STAR method, it is based on a philosophy of past behaviors being a strong predictor of future behaviors. And this is a standard technique that is used to structure answers to behavior-oriented questions. And so when an employer asks you, tell me about a time, can you give me an example of this? You want to, there's a specific way on how to answer that. And you answer it using the STAR method. And STAR is an acronym for situation, task, action, and results. And so the situation is you're setting the stage, you're giving context around the specific challenge, The task is describing your responsibility or role in that situation or challenge. And the action explains the specific action that you took to address to overcome that issue or challenge. If it was a group effort, you want to avoid using we and just focus on I, because that's what the hiring manager wants to hear. What did you do? I will say the A in the STAR method is the most important, because what the hiring manager is trying to listen for is, how would that relate to this role? How would those actions or those behaviors, how would that connect to this role? And then finally, the results, what you have achieved or outcome. Oftentimes I find that interview candidates, they forget the R. And the R is just as important, because you want to give what the outcome was. How was it resolved? And these are just some example questions. I'm not going to go through them all. But again, describe a time, share an example, tell me about a time. I would strongly advise that you start preparing. When you look at the job description, look at the competencies, what the job description is requiring from a competency skill standpoint, and then go online, try to find just Google behavior-oriented questions. Try to find those questions that will be tied to those competencies, like problem solving. Share an example of a time when you faced a difficult problem at work. How did you solve it? Think of the situation, the task, what actions did you take, and result. And so these are just some examples of how to respond. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through everything here. So just real high level. And then at the end of the interview, you want to come prepared with questions, because the interviewer will allow some time for questions. So you want to come with questions already. I would say nothing more than, 3 to 5 questions. Asking an interviewer about their experience. Interviewers love talking about themselves. How long have you been with the company? What it's been like for you? What is the culture like? What is the team dynamics? What does success look like for this role? How would you describe your top performer? How would you describe your low performer? Can you shed some more light on the process, the hiring process? What would the next step look like? And so after the interview, post-interview, you want to wrap up the experience, send a thank you note. Thank you notes go a long way. I have a quick story I want to share. I was invited for an interview, and it was a first level interview. I received a rejection notice. I was not moved to the next step of the process. And I was disappointed. So I sent a very nice thank you letter. And then next thing you know, I received an invite for an interview. I don't know what changed their mind, but I ended up being hired. And so who would have thought that by responding to I received a rejection notice, that I ended up landing an interview. Ended up landing the interview and being hired. So after every interview, you want to send a post-interview thank you note, showing your gratitude for the interview experience. You want to learn a note about what you've learned about the role. Try to add some things that were unique, some unique characteristics that came up within the interview process, as far as some unique things that you learned during the process. Mention that, and then reflect on how your interview went, and and for yourself, reflect on your interview and how you can improve. All right. So best of luck to you. And just know
I
I'm
do have
rooting for
one
you.
question. Can I ask a question?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, so
Ask the
after
question,
the
ask away.
interview, a lot of these companies, you don't hear back or they might ghost you. And if you don't hear back, like if you got the job or did not get the job, what's the proper protocol? Can you reach out to their HR to see
Absolutely,
like how
absolutely. So
far the
yeah,
waiting is the
absolutely.
hardest part? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that at the end of the interview, um, when you're asking about the process, what I can expect from a next step standpoint, when should I expect to hear back? You know, for as far as next steps, is always good to ask that question. Is it okay if I follow up by Friday if I don't, or in the next week or two if I don't hear anything? Is it okay if I can follow up with you via email? What would be the best, method, for me to follow up? So it's okay to ask those questions.
Okay.
And it's okay, the recruiter or the interviewer, they may say, tell you, oh yes, it's okay to follow up. If you don't hear back from me by this time, then, feel free to follow up. You can ask that during or within your thank you letter, post the interview. I would say every interaction that you have at each stage, there should be an interview that follows up within 24, at the latest 48 hours. Does that answer your question?
Within 24 to 48 hours, there should be a communication.
As far as
Do you mean an
sending out
email?
a thank you,
Yeah.
thank you note?
Yeah, and an email too, maybe would get, they're within the 24 hours where a note in the mail might not, right?
Okay.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm referring to an email note. I'm referring to email. Yes, within 24 to 48 hours, follow up via email. That's acceptable.
And then if you don't hear back, let's say they just ghost you after a week or two, just move on, right? That's what standard protocol. Don't send another email after that. Just assume that you did not get the role.
I would suggest it's okay to send another
Okay.
email. It's okay to follow up. So you'll send the initial thank you email for the opportunity to interview. And if you do not hear back in a week or so, follow up. Yes, follow up.
I have one question. So if I try how I can control the length of their interview. Maybe sometime I want to give them a more detailed answer, but maybe take a long time. But if I just give very brief answer, maybe I cannot totally explain my intention to them. So how I can control the length of their answer in the interview.
I'm sorry. I think I don't know if I'm having some
Are you
audio
are you asking that?
difficulties.
How do you make it more of a concise answer? Is that what I'm hearing?
How about the time control, maybe for each question? So maybe I want to explain a very detailed answer. I want to give more detail, but maybe take a long time. So how I can control the time? Maybe each question, maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or I can have 5 minutes, 6 minutes for each question, or I have to control the time.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Great question. I would say the rule of thumb and the focus and the target is to you want to give enough context for the listener, for the interviewer to understand the background, because they may not have the background information. So you want to give enough context around that so that they can follow you. But you also, it's tricky because you have to balance as far as how much to share. And that's why the STAR method organizing your responses using the STAR method is going to be very helpful for you. And so organize it as start, here's the situation for the issue, the task, the actions that were taken, and the outcome.
Mm.
So if you organize it that way, it will help the interviewer to understand, you know, the flow, the sequence of events. They have some context, and they also understand. They will get a better understanding and sense of your capabilities and your ability and your experience and your skill sets. So if you organize in that way, it will definitely help you with presenting and delivering a more concise message.
Yeah. And Latrice, what is sometimes, you know, actually writing it down, your answer, and having 6 to 7 scenarios prepared ahead of time. And if you're thinking, oh, how am I going to think of this, you know, right at that moment, is you know, where they are a time where you solved a difficult problem or worked with a difficult team member or customer. So having some common interview scenarios written down and practiced for the STAR-based method. Do you agree with that, Latrice?
I absolutely agree with that. Yes, I absolutely agree with that. Recite it over and over and over again until it becomes natural. Recite it in the mirror. Record yourself. Have a go through a mock interview. Have a trusted friend or family interview you. So continue to recite it, repeat it until it becomes second nature.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great question. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So if we go through these multiple rounds of interviews, should we kind of align ourselves with different responses just to not be so redundant and repetitive with each one?
That is a great question. My first inclination or my first answer is yes and no. So yes, because especially if you're interviewing with different interviewers, and if different interviewers, if they're hearing the same example, it could work for your benefit because it could validate and it could verify, you know, like, oh yeah, shared the same with me. That was a great example, you know, so it could be a point of verification or validation. Or I say no on the flip side is because the interviewers are going to come back and they're going to, you know, they're going to deliberate and debrief. And, or it could be, oh yeah, provided this response to this question, and another interviewer could say, yeah, provided that response. And it could be perceived as, is that the only example? But if it's a panel interview with, you know, everyone is in the panel interview and there's not separate interviews and everyone is hearing the same thing, it's okay to have another example in your back pocket. I actually encourage, just in case, because there could be an interviewer that may want to know more, or they may not be as clear, or they may ask, well, could you give us another example, or could you give us another time? So it's always good to have another example in your back pocket that will speak to that, that competency. Does
Cool.
that help?
Appreciate it. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And I assume I'm probably, you know, I overanalyze things. So I'll probably have, you know, I'll read the person, and if they're very emotional or if they're very, you know, left-brained, I'll kind of strategize my direction of answer towards either relational or objectives. So
very smart. You're using your emotional intelligence radar. So
Yeah,
that's
my mom got her master's in social work from Wayne State, so I learned well.
very, very smart. But you also have to be careful with that too. So if the interviewer is way too relaxed, way too comfortable, doesn't mean that you should be way too relaxed and way too comfortable. You're still there interviewing for a position and you are competing against other candidates. You want to bring your authentic self and you also want to be professional, but I understand you want to match the other person energy, but there's some boundaries there.
Okay. Well, this was all great stuff. Latrice, I appreciate you giving our, I love the questions. It really,
Yeah, the questions are fantastic.
oh, I know.
Yes.
So, but anyway, so we'll go ahead and end the Zoom session because I know we got to kind of move on. I got another meeting, but I wanted to thank all of you attending. I'm going to be sending out a recording of the Zoom of the whole meeting, as well as if Latrice would send me the PowerPoint, I'd love to send that out as well. Because
Yes, I will. I will have that out to you.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we appreciate your time. And
thank you,
so much,
everyone.
Latrice. This was so much great information.
Thank you. Thank you. It was my pleasure, Cheryl. Thank you for the invitation and the best of luck to you all. And just stay positive and keep smiling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.